water, then all the silts and muds which get washed off of here because it's such high energy get deposited off there. Now if we look at that particular area in detail, here you can see folds. So here's every little layer of sandstone or mudstone or shale, but in there you can also see those old river channels going offshore. And it's the scouring effect that creates this nice bedrock controlled area offshore that's probably one of the reasons why we have such good lobster fishing grounds off of there. It's nice and rocky, it's not muddy. So what about the present natural rise? Well, Kyle alluded to this, and yes, Cape Breton can show people what that's all about, and that's this place, which is Louisburg, right? And Kyle had brought that out in terms of it can show us how high sea level has risen, and when you put that information in with some other information, what it shows is that over the last couple of years right now, sea level naturally has been rising about 0.36 meters every 100 years. And about half of that is due to the ground surface dropping, and half of that is due to the water level rising. Okay, so we've talked the past, we've talked the present. Now the question is, could Cape Breton really show people in the rest of the world what could happen in the future? And the answer is yes. But first, I have to take you to this place on Cape Breton. Where do you think that might be? Now, this is Bay St. Lawrence.
I would say St. Martin's Bay.
And Bay St. Lawrence up at the northern tip of the island. And if you just happen to go over here to the left, you get to Cape North. So those of you who may have been at Money Point, you probably took this road up over the top, down the other side, so Money Point is just on the other side there. Now, you may look at that and say, well, geez, well, what the heck's that got to do with sea level change? Well, I'll draw your attention way down there on the shore. And when you take a look at that, what you see is this long, straight line. And what that's been shown to be is that during the last time things were this warm, the last interglacial, which was 125,000 years ago, sea level was higher than it is right now, by about 5 to 7 meters. And what it did, when it was up that high, it started to erode a platform in fairly weak rock and created a nice level platform, and that's what this is showing us right along here. That's how high sea level was 125,000 years ago. Now, I've hit you with quite a number of numbers. Let's see if we can't make sense of it. And like any good Cape Bretoner, if we're going to try and make sense of something, the first thing we do is we head to the beach, crack open a couple of beer, and sort of sit down and try and talk about it. Well, I can't give you any beer tonight, but what I'm going to do is take you down to that beach down there and see if we can't put this in perspective. So, there's the top of that wave-cut platform. That's where sea level was 125,000 years ago. Here's sea level now. So, the natural rise is about 0.36 meters. The International Panel on Climate Change in 2007 expected a rate of change about 0.2 to 0.7 meters, as what Kyle mentioned. In 2009, they said, oh, I think we're a bit too conservative because Greenland's melting faster than we expected, the Arctic sea ice is melting faster than we expected, so now their estimates are 0.5 to 2 meters by the year 2100. Now, if you listen to Al Gore's talk, or Eleanor may have given it to you, The Inconvenient Truth, what they brought out there is abrupt climate change. And that is if all the ice on Greenland melts, or some of those big ice rafts in Antarctic melt, the sea level could rise 5 to 7 meters. But interestingly enough, that puts it back to where we were 125,000 years ago. On top of that, we have to deal with storm surge. And down here right now, about a 3.5 meter rise of storm surge happens roughly once every 40 years. What they're predicting in 2100 is that'll happen once a year. So, when you're trying to put all this together, we've got quite a range of sea level rise that we could be dealing with. And if you remember what I talked about at the beginning of this, well, this is the natural rhythm and beat of our planet. That's the skip in the beat created by man. But interestingly enough, the skip in the beat isn't the extent that sea level will rise, because we've already been up here 125,000 years ago in Cape Breton. The skip in the beat is how fast we're going to get there. So for example, if you said, well, let's go with this 2 meter rise, Well, if you used the natural rate, it would take us 550 years to get there. Now we're saying it's going to happen in 90 years. If you took the 5-meter rise, well, under natural conditions, it would take us 1,400 years to get there. Now we're saying it's in 90 years. So, this rhythm has speeded up considerably. Now, you may want to think of that if you're in a band or if you enjoy music. The person that creates the beat, the rhythm of a song is the drummer. Right? And what we're saying now, here's the drummer at this rate, and in the middle of the song, all of a sudden, he's going to increase by a beat the factor of 5. So instead of boom, boom, it's now boom, 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 boom. And if we go with the 5-meter rise, it's now boom, 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 boom. So it's the beat, it's the rhythm that we're changing considerably. And it's interesting that the drummer for the planet is actually the melting of the Arctic and the Antarctic ice sheets. That's the thing we have to watch out for. That's the drummer that's increasing the beat. The faster that ice melts, the faster sea level rises. The faster it rises, the less time we have to adapt. So maybe now, the next time you start listening in the news or you read in the paper that there's less ice out there and Greenland is melting faster, or as they just showed a couple of weeks ago, there's another big ice sheet that's come off Antarctica. Now you begin to recognize, that's the natural rhythm of our planet being sped up. Okay, that's the first part of the talk, giving you a bit of a handle on sea level rise. Now let's take a look at the impacts that could come up in Glace Bay. And we're going to divide that into 3 areas, which are mapping the changes in the shoreline, crustal erosion, and coastal flooding. Anybody know where that particular shot is?
Yeah, Dominion Beach, looking over at home.
Exactly. You got it. Okay. Now this is some of the research my co-author and I are looking at in terms of what's going on in Cape Breton. So we wanted to be able to map that out. So what he did was to take a map of Cape Breton, strip off all the vegetation, and highlight the relief. So here you can see the relief in the Cape Breton Highlands. Sydney's here, Glace Bay's over here. And once you do that, you can do all sorts of neat things with it. And we're going to start looking at it as if we were flying into it in that direction. And that's what you get. So you can see here the Cape Breton Highlands, Ingonish should be here, here's Sydney. And then what he did was to take an image from one of the satellites called Landsat, and he laid it over it, so now you can begin to see roads and all sorts of other man-made infrastructure. But then we asked the computer, okay, given these ranges of sea level rise, color code it and show us how much of Cape Breton would be flooded if we went up to 2.5 meters rise, 5, 7.5, and 10. So you can begin to see these color schemes in there. Now we're not going to look at the whole island, since we're going to be interested in Glace Bay. We're just going to focus on that area. And here's Glace Bay here. But the thing that shows that I want to bring out here is that Glace Bay isn't the only place on Cape Breton that's going to be impacted by coastal zone flooding. So you can see that certainly the Port Moray and Homeville area is, Meyer River, Gabaroos, Malagawatch. There's quite a number of areas that are going to be impacted by this sea level rise. But tonight we're just going to focus on Glace Bay. And the next shot we're going to do is fly around and come in as though we're going to land at the airport. And just to get yourself all geared up for that, this is where Glace Bay Dominion is. And here's Sydney Airport, Dominion Beach, and Big Glace Bay Lake. And here the color coding for the different levels of sea level rise. As I mentioned before, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at all of Cape Breton. So these are pretty coarse estimates with the existing information. What you really need to get this